So let's start by just discussing a little bit about what's going on with vaping at the moment. I know there are some moves to kind of get rid of all the colourful packaging, and Australia is looking to increase taxes, and there's moves towards kind of taking it off the shelves, but maybe it's too little, too late. I don't know. It seems to be like the tobacco industry is kind of creating some kind of they always seem to find a way, don't they, to sell to us.
Well, it's supply and demand, isn't it? If people don't want it, people want it. If they don't doing that, they'll be doing something else. I think that's one of the things about addiction. It doesn't just go away. It just goes somewhere else if it's not treated. But I think, like what you're saying there, it is like a new thing. But I remember, I can't even remember how long it's been around for now, the vaping, but I know it come out as like cigarettes as replacement for to take away the harmful effects of tobacco. But when I actually I kind of see the idea of it was really sound. I like the idea of the vaping. You can control the nicotine, reduce it, because again, I understand the power of nicotine and how strong it is. But I think just sort of going a little bit conspiracy for a minute is that you did sort of realise that, if you look at some of them sort of 50s adverts about nicotine and smoking, it's almost like a healthy thing to do. And even when I was a kid, I'm pretty sure you can't get this anymore, but you used to be able to get chocolate cigarettes, little 10 packs of cigarettes. You could pretend to be like your dad.
Yeah.
And even some of them you'd blow and a big flower would come out and had a red end. And, they had electronic cigarettes that looked like you were smoking as a kid. But as the years have gone on, I think they've sort of become clearer that people have become... Imagine this is the conspiracy. Again, I don't know whether it is. I'm just a bloke. It's just my opinion. But what I see from... And again, somebody that's, spent most of his life in addiction, in treatment and suffering from it, is that they kind of accepted that the tobacco was really harmful for you and give you all kinds of cancers and nasties, and there's kind of no getting away from it. And then they made it so you can only smoke outside, that sort of thing. But as that was happening, I guess the tobacco companies, now the backstory to them, and you can Google this, I did, that's where I got my information, is that it's probably one of the richest businesses on planet Earth, because the profit margin on tobacco is like through the roof. It's like a low input and a maximal output kind of product that not only it's very highly addictive. And so even when I was young, one of the punishments that they kind of recommended that if you got caught smoking would get you to smoke like a whole pack one after the other, make you ill, but that actually just made you more addicted. And if cigarettes being horrible was a deterrent, you probably wouldn't have smoked the second one. They were disgusting. You had to really push through that bit to smoke. And but as you've seen so what they've realised is these companies that make just billions. I think they make more money than like Coke and Pepsi and some of them other companies all clumped together. So I think as they've acknowledged that, look,
I just had a little look at the numbers here, and the revenue in tobacco products in the world in 2023 is estimated to be 941 billion.
Yeah.
And 834 billion of that is made up of cigarettes, which is an insane amount of money.
Well, I think you'll probably find it's more nicotine. Now, that's the thing, the bit that they don't really talk about. They talk about tobacco. But the truth is, the world is facing, especially the Western world, is unprecedented decline in people smoking. But the profit margins of nicotine, which is what their product really is, are going through the roof. See, so if you had a business that was sort of two parts, tobacco, you got to kind of look at this. The tobacco is only the dispenser. You don't really want the tobacco. You kind of want the nicotine. We all tried smoking, nicotine-free tobacco. It's disgusting. There's no point in it, and you don't. People are not interested in that. Not very many anyway. You might get the odd person that just likes to look like they got smoke coming out of their mouth, but it's kind of like alcohol-free lager. I don't really see the point in it, but some people like it. But so tobacco was the dispenser of the nicotine. The nicotine's the real addictive bit that keeps people hooked and keeps them coming back. Even because again, look, I don't know how many people you know that smoke, Matt, but pretty much everyone I know that smokes don't want to smoke. I mean, how many products?
They all say they're going to quit, especially.
Oh man, look!
Especially the people that vape. The vapers always wanting to quit.
It's a
this will be the
beautiful
last one. I'll
business.
stop all the time.
It's a beautiful business. You buy my product whether you want it or not. I mean, there's nothing like it on earth apart from other drugs. But it's an amazing business. So,
That's it, isn't it?
so sticking with the conspiracy theory that I'm presenting at this point, and I'm sure someone's already got more of a proof of all of this, but it just look what it looks like as an observer of addiction that worked in a rehab. I smoked myself from the age of 9, stopped at 30 years old, 5 years after I come into recovery, and I watch a lot of people smoking as they in through the rehabs as they're sort of they start coming off of all their other drugs. Their nicotine goes through the roof. But so you've noticed this. I always imagine in a boardroom somewhere they've gone, this is looking really bad. It's like, people are noticing that we're actually our product's killing them. What can we do about it? It's like, I should think if you called in the most coolest, hippest, intelligent business advisor, he'd come in and go, well, the reason they don't want it is because of the harmful elements to it. So you want to keep the addictive bit in because that's a real unique selling point that keeps them coming back. So we've got to find a way of getting the harmful elements out of it. Hence the vape coming to existence. So pretty quickly I was having these conversations. They've just invented another addiction. That was because I wouldn't have thought quite then. They've just changed the dispenser. They've changed the dispenser because and then now they've promoted that the dispenser of the drug nicotine. Now I'm not even saying nicotine's a bad drug. I think it kind of saved my life, if I'm honest. I used to think I had panic attacks. I thought I had asthma when I was a kid, but I think it was panic attacks. Initially, like most drugs, I think nicotine calmed me down. It kind of took me down a path I probably didn't want to go down. I think 100% it's a gateway drug, and we'll get a little bit more into what it actually does in people's brains in a little bit further on. But as you've seen all of the cigarette packages start losing all of their glamour, all of the motor racing cars, all of the, the Marlboro Man died of cancer, and all of that colour and has gone from the smoking, and the shutters come down on the, the pictures of people with rotten mouths and lungs and horrible diseases on the packets as they've soured that. In its place there's this beautiful, shiny, colourful strawberry flavour, banana flavour product that's better for you, 90% better for you than smoking. And then all of a sudden we've seen, I mean, that's unbelievable for me. You go in some of these shops now, it's like the whole wall to the till is vape juices. They got them, I don't know what kind of screen they are, you might know, but they look really cool looking, like bit of out of this world kind of pictures of vapes and vaping and juices, and it's so attractive. And I keep thinking to myself, maybe I should vape. What sedatives do
They
you
look delicious. All the different flavours that you could never get anywhere else. Ice Blast and all of it. It's ridiculous. It looks like a sweet shop, doesn't it? They're all at the front. It's weird because, like you say, all the cigarettes are now hidden, but all the vapes, which have the same drug in,
if you
are
could
right
put a
at the
camera
front.
on, if you could put a camera on and then do a time, what they call it when they
Time lapse.
If you time lapse, it'd probably be like watching something dying and then something really beautiful emerging from it.
Yeah.
And
from an
so
advertisement perspective, it's genius, isn't it?
Oh, it's bloody genius. You'd need billions to come up with some advertising like that. But not only that, I think you're right, mate. I think it is a freaking sweet shop. Because all they got to do is get that nicotine into them children. And again, I think the sad thing is, children were stopping smoking because it was bad for you. Most children thought you're an idiot to smoke. Now, what I tell people, is look, if you get 100 families where everybody in that family smokes, pretty much all the children are. Maybe 10% won't. I don't know if there is a statistic, but maybe 10% won't. You get 100 families that don't smoke, I bet you get probably 10% of them that do. So again, you can't just completely blame the tobacco companies, but again, I don't think we all realise how we're all being duped and being fed addiction. Why would the government even let that happen? Why would the government even let the children, which is what most of the issues are about at the moment, the amount of children that are vaping, why would the children let these big corporations market to all of the children in our country? I wonder why that is. Oh, sorry, I think I'm still being conspiracy here.
Well, I mean, the data's there. NHS did a report from 2001, and they said that 5% of all adults were defined as e-cigarette users, and it also revealed that 1 in 10, so 10% of 11 to 15-year-olds had vaped. And in 2018, so 3 years before that, it was just 6%. So there's a 4% increase, between 2018 and 2021, which is when we've started to see these vape products show up and they're everywhere. Yeah. And it's only becoming more and more so. So if nothing changes, that number will increase.
Why do they call it vaping? They need to call it what it really is, a nicotine dispenser. It's all it is. It's a nicotine dispenser. Tobacco was a nicotine dispenser. Now the vape is a nicotine dispenser. And again, there's no real science that I'm aware of that says whether it's really good or bad for you. Is it better than smoking? Possibly, probably, I don't know. But the bit that I don't think that gets talked about is that nicotine is a very powerful drug, because like we've already said, most people that are doing it don't want to be doing it. Now, why can't they stop? Most things is like you don't like, you stop. And a lot of them try. I don't know if you ever watch people try, and I've watched thousands over my life. And what happens to most people, even when they're using the nicotine replacement products, fail often. It's because it's such a powerful drug. And again, this is the bit I don't think gets talked about, because even the fact that I don't think them big companies want to talk about nicotine. They want to talk about tobacco, because the nicotine is the real evil, sinister bit to it all. That you're getting people addicted to your product, which is through the roof business. And that's the bit that really doesn't get talked about. They go on about the harms of tobacco. It doesn't harm so much. And it's like, yeah, well, what about the addictive qualities of it? And what does that nicotine do in the brain of a child? What does that nicotine do in the brain of an adult? Why does it become so addictive, and why does it become so hard to stop? And the reason it becomes so hard to stop is because apart from it being a stimulant, it's also a suppressant. So it suppresses emotion. And that's why when people stop smoking, they often put on weight. That's what happened to me. Because like I say, addiction doesn't just go away. It just transmits to something else, or transmutes, whatever the right terminology would be. So food's another suppressant of emotion. You know, people that are really overweight, it's because they're trying to change the way they feel, mostly. Again, when you're talking about humans, there's no like one thing. But basically, you know, you can pretty much get in the ballpark that people want to suppress the way they feel. But if you're a child and you're just developing your emotions, you need to feel stuff and difficult things. And then you need to speak to people that can help you resolve it and help you develop a healthy nervous system, help you develop a healthy perception of the world, which, again, it can't guarantee that's going to happen. That depends what environment you're being brought up in. But if you start realising, as I did from pretty young, that smoking makes me feel better, and when I feel uncomfortable, I just reach for a cigarette. When I feel hungry, I reach for a cigarette. When I feel tired, I reach for a coffee and a cigarette. You know, when somebody...
having that reliance on the nicotine... having that reliance on the nicotine means that you don't learn those coping mechanisms to deal with those feelings otherwise.
No, you become dependent on the nicotine, and you never develop the natural ability to cope and problem solve and to process your emotions. Because you start suppressing them, and that's 20 years later when you think, oh, I've got to stop doing this. And then you stop smoking, you got 20 years of suppressed emotions on their way up. And not only that, you've never developed the capacity to cope with them. Because that takes neural network. You know, then that nicotine is actually wiring your children's brain. And so when you remove it, the same with all drugs, we call it, there's a bridge to normal living, and that bridge is being, you know, this is why it's so hard to get people completely abstinent, because to stop them using chemicals, now what is their brain going to depend on, and it can be very uncomfortable for them to cross this bridge. But if you can keep them drug free or nicotine free, eventually the natural process restarts, and if you're in a good environment, that's why I think it's good going to, you know, 12-step groups or recovery groups, or having sponsors and people you can talk to. That's kind of what sponsors do. They help you. Oh, I don't know what to do here. I want to smash them up. I've had enough. I want to go back. Why do I bother? They can help talk to you and soothe you and comfort you, which helps redevelop your neural pathways. And it takes a good 4 years for most people with addiction to actually start, you know, balancing out a little bit. And then as we go on, you know, like when you've been in recovery for 10 years, you've been through X amount of life's ups and downs, you've kind of redeveloped, you've sort of grown up now, you've matured. Things that were problems, you know, we're always saying to people, you know, you've got to face your problems, not because, you know, because we want you to be able to develop. That problem is naturally going to make you stronger, it's going to grow you, it's going to give you ability, and then you're going to process and you'll be able to overcome it, and then that problem won't be a problem anymore. And it's one of the, you know, it's one of the things I'd like to do more podcasts about, of what kind of happens to you and why is recovery so hard, like relationships, and you know, that bridge can be very difficult to cross. But at the same time, it's kind of depending on the environment you're in. Is there people there that can give you good guidance, good direction? You know, because then what used to be a problem, you can actually start feeling good about. Even like, you know, the challenge of overcoming it and growing. So it really does alter your mind, nicotine, especially in young people. It's like, you know, I ain't got a problem, you know. I watch, you know, on the YouTube, them guys around my age, you know, they're smoking cigars. I kind of envy them. I think, oh, I wish I could do that, have the odd cigar. You know, there's nothing wrong with a bit of tobacco. I don't think there's anything wrong with having a V8 engine. As long as not everyone ain't got one, or now and then, but it's like when you do it too much, you know, people having a nice little tipple of whiskey, or you know, even getting a bit drunk. There's nothing wrong in that at all. But for me, I couldn't have a cigar because I think that, I don't know what it is about me, but I've always had very little control over stuff like that. So the only way I can, you know, even like drinking, the only way I can be in control of my drinking is by not doing it. I've had countless vain attempts to sort of drink normally and always end up in a mess. And, you know, even like with... Go ahead, mate.
I was just going to say, Les, as a bit of a sort of closing statement on the topic of vaping, is there anything that you might suggest to people that are stuck vaping, or maybe people with children who they think might be vaping? Are there any ways in which we can stop? I mean, of course, there's things that there's elements of recovery, and there's things like rehabs and therapies. But what might you suggest to somebody who can't get off a vape?
Well, I think there is smoking cessation clinics. You know, we have talked to one in Ipswich. They're great people that can really give you a lot of courses and guidance and groups. So I think the first thing, like anything, isn't it, it's actually admitting that it's a problem. Like all addictions, is like again, young people, well, it ain't a problem. It's like, well, you're not really doing your own work, or maybe you're not really being told that you're becoming dependent on a drug, and you know that does have a psychological effect. It's not all they all just talk about the physical harms. They never talk about the psychological harm, and it's probably doing you far more harm than you could imagine. But do your own work. It's like, look, you know, do what you like. It's your life, but it is probably doing you harm, and you've got to remember that a vape is just a nicotine dispenser. Nicotine is the problem, because that's going to make it very hard for you to stop, whether it's in a vape or not. And it does lead to other drugs, because once your brain starts tagging on nicotine, as you've realised that chemicals actually solve your problems, then you start on the alcohol, then the coke comes in, then other things start coming in. So, you know, without doubt, to me, nicotine is definitely a gateway drug. But I think you'd find it hard to go find me a drug addict that didn't start smoking first.